Hi, Sam. Welcome to Red Nails with Portia. This is Portia. Boom, boom. Okay, so I just watched The Summer I Turned Pretty, and boy, this show gets better and better. I actually eat it up. I eat it up. Now, we first start off with Julia selling the house, and they talk about the big shit miss. It's not that big. It's not that big. It's actually very disappointing how much they hyped this up and just showed how immature Julia is. I understand like feeling somewhat like a disgrace from your family because of like the whole divorcee situation, but I think it's invalid to run away because, of course, like the mom didn't want to make a comment and like scare like everyone off. Like she didn't want to take sides, which I completely get. But it doesn't mean that you completely disregard your whole family. But even if you did to create boundaries, which I totally understand, it's still like it's still kind of disgusting how she just like walked off and like didn't show up for her own sister's funeral. Like, let's think about that. She didn't show up to her own sister's funeral. This fight like was like no, like screw you. Like I will not show up to your funeral. I mean, that is really rude. Like Julia feels like she's not part of the family, but doesn't mean that like she has to act that way. And then like they sell the house and then Billy's like, "Okay, let's hold a party. Let's hold a party." And they go out and they get alcohol and they're all underage. But like, first Conrad came in, couldn't pull it off. Jeremiah didn't pull it off. Belly was able to pull it off because I mean, obviously the guy's like somewhat attracted to her. That's like the truth. And she used negotiation skills. If you paid attention, Jenny Han was in the background, and you're like, oh, there's Jenny Han. There's Jenny Han. Um, but also though, if you like really looked into it, I'm like my dad and I discussed this when we were watching the show about how in these situations, how like possibly the boys are just attracted to Belly because like she's like the holding connection they have to their mom and they're kind of just fighting over it. Like that theory about how like Meghan Markle kind of manipulated Harry into a relationship because like she convinced him that she had similar traits to Princess Diana. I mean, that's what the internet says. I don't know what's going on. And I think this applies to their relationship because then, like, at some point, they went to Party City and well, before that, there's a cute parallel scene where where Belly and Jeremiah jump into the swim pool and they're just like fighting and cute stuff and they're about to kiss and they don't and then they just talk a bit. And then Jeremiah hops in when Conrad wants to go out with Belly because Jeremiah was not gonna let that slide. He was like, "No, Belly's mine." But which is like, oh, like cute little fight. We got a cute little cat fight going on, which I'm a fan of. But like, keep this in mind though. A big thing is that they are attracted to her because one of the bigger reasons is because like A, childhood represents childhood. B, it's a representation of their connection to their mom. And if you notice, like at one scene when Belly calls Conrad Connie, he says, "Oh, like my mom used to call me that when she got mad." And then like he was like happy that like, she said stuff like that, which was like, hmm. And like Jeremiah had to cut that out. He literally showed up out of nowhere from their fun scene. But I did like how Belly did apologize for roasting him at his mother's funeral, and then he told her that he had panic attacks, which is like, ooh, yikes. But I did like how later on, like Belly was like communicating somewhat to Jeremiah, being like, technically like moving on. Like I'm moving like a page forward in the book. Which is like, okay, go on, girl. Finally, you're moving on, which is great. And Jeremiah's like, but like still kind of jealous. But then you notice when he's like going through photos and like going through the garage, he has his mom's rollerblades and he takes them to Belly and Belly wears them. And then he's like, my mom used to wear them. And then like you notice how like they relate their mom so closely to Belly. I just think like that's kind of something a little weird. I mean, great on Darwinism, but like you have to think a little bit about that. Like how how closely she's related to like the mom in the sense of like personality, and like even the mom was like, oh, you got to keep the magic alive in this house. Like think about that. I want you to think about that. Like sit and think about that. That's like high key imprinting that girl. But also she shouldn't be playing around with brothers. I'm just saying, like that's kind of messy. That's kind of messy. Um, but yes, there were fights. There were two major fights. Every guy fighting over the girls tonight. Um, literally, okay, loved the Milo Steven fight because, well, I mean, like, it doesn't really indicate why Milo's like a douchebag. Like it's just Milo does like little things, but they're not like necessarily like reasons to like kick him to the curb, you know? I mean, from what we know as the audience. And then when he first walks in, like Sky and Cameron, they're like he's like, where's Taylor? And then they're like, oh, I don't know. And then they're like, we gotta keep him away. Like, what? Like they're boyfriend girlfriend, like okay, like it's just weird how they just like kind of push that away. And like also Sky and Cameron, like they finally made out, which is like kudos to them. I think somewhat they like somewhat work, you know. I can see it. I hope that like there's more progression on that. But I do love Steven and Taylor. That is adorable, okay? Like the whole dance routine they did for like Miley Cyrus's Party in the USA, and then he finally confesses. He's like, I like you. I like you so much. You're more than my sister's annoying best friend. Ah. And then he like fights with Milo. And then what really convinces Taylor is the middle name. It's the middle name. I always remember middle names. I'm weird like that. But that's what wins them over. So at least Steven got a win, got a W in Taylor. Like go off, go for good for them. Good they got the win. And like Steve then was like talking to Conrad, and then he's like, Conrad, like I see you staring at my sister, like ah. And then like, but and he's like, I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for you. I'm like, Conrad. I. But then like, it was funny though how when they went outside, like Sky was like, hey, like my mom was able to pull out a deal where you guys get to like rent once a month the house, which like I think that's kind of a sick deal. Like, sure, you can't like live there, but like at least like some strings are pulled, you know? You gotta respect that. And they don't have to pay like that much for the house anymore, which is like, okay, like you don't have to pull in a judge, you don't have to pull in all that stuff. But Conrad said, screw this. And then Jeremiah's like, F you. And he's like, you know what? Like when things don't go well, you just ditch them, just like Belly. And then he exposed the conversation that they had about Conrad saying my chest physically hurts when I can't talk to her. And then like, but what was so weird was that Belly reacted in like a positive way and was like, oh my gosh, she still loves me and like I should have fought harder. Um, what? You don't make any sense. You don't make any sense. They technically had this conversation. You know they kind of did. And like, yeah, look, you didn't have to do that. Also, like getting drunk on the beach is not a good look. And fighting with your ex on the beach and saying like, I would have fought harder. That's not a good look. Not a good look at all. And then she just stands in the middle like of like Jeremiah and Conrad in the end, and it's like, oh girl, y- like it's so bad. Honestly, I didn't like put much feeling towards Belly and Jeremiah's kiss because it just felt like a drunk kiss at a party. I guess like that kind of applies to like me. But like I guess it's like it just doesn't feel like emotional or passionate. It just feels like, it doesn't feel like much, you know what I mean? And you have alcohol, it doesn't feel real, you know? Also, if you noticed, this whole episode was Taylor Swift songs, so it wasn't really just Belly and Conrad anymore. They played like you know, Delicate during Jeremiah and Belly's kiss. Well, about to kiss, sorry. They were about to kiss, but they did end up kissing at some point. I forgot to mention that. And then they played Snow on the Beach for for Steven and Taylor's kiss. So I'm thinking like these Taylor Swift songs aren't exclusive anymore, so fans can't really like navigate it, even though we like technically know the end. Like one of them needs like someone needs to make a decision. This is uncomfy. Um, I really did like this episode because usually I guess like with the party it foreshadows like so many actions. I'm glad Steven and Taylor are finally an item because like, and it's funny how they did mention Shayla, and like how that couple did break up and stuff like that. I think it's good though that like Steven and Taylor are together, and I mean in this version, and I think it's just awesome, and like they really like each other, so I was like, oh, so cute. And yeah, you know so that was my review. I really like the episode. I'll give it 10 out of 10. um yeah, so thank you so much for listening. Bye.